All 8 Muggle events that changed the wizarding world. Number 8, the European witch hunts. Before the persecutions, magical families often lived much closer to Muggle communities. Magic was not yet sealed away behind its own hidden society, and witches and wizards could live among Muggles without treating every interaction as a threat. Then fear turned that coexistence into danger. For capable witches and wizards, execution was rarely effective. A flame-freezing charm could make fire harmless, and Wendelin the Weird reportedly allowed herself to be burned 47 times because she enjoyed pretending it hurt. But children and less skilled magical people were far more vulnerable. Families were exposed, homes were destroyed, and frightened crowds often accused completely innocent Muggles as well. The growing danger pushed magical communities further into hiding. By 1692, the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy made that separation official. The witch hunts did not destroy the wizarding world, they convinced it to disappear. Number 7. The Salem Witch Trials. Salem made that separation far harsher in North America. The trials of 1692 and 1693 were driven by Muggle fear and accusations made with almost no evidence. But corrupt wizards also helped feed the panic. They were called Scourers. Originally mercenaries in a scattered magical community with no organized law enforcement, the Scourers became traffickers, torturers, and hunters of their own kind. Wizarding historians believed that at least 2 sat among Salem's Puritan judges. Actual witches, innocent nomages, and anyone caught in a private feud could therefore be condemned by the same system. Salem caused magical people to flee America, while many European wizarding families decided never to move there. For generations, North America had a smaller magical population and a higher proportion of no-mage-born witches and wizards. That also gave pure-blood ideology less influence than it had in Europe. It is difficult to build an aristocracy around ancient American bloodlines when many ancient families refused to arrive. Most importantly, Salem led to Macusa's creation in 1693. The American magical community formed a government, recruited its first Aurors, and began enforcing secrecy more aggressively than Europe. Muggle hysteria had created the political structure of Wizarding America. Number 6. The American Revolution. The American Revolution forced witches and wizards to answer a problem the statute had never solved. What happened when their Muggle country went to war? In 1777, Macusa President Elizabeth McGillicuddy organized the Country or Kind debate. Thousands attended, and the chamber had to be magically enlarged. One side argued that magical Americans had no mage friends and neighbors, and should help them fight for independence. The other warned that joining the war could expose magic and drag the hidden community into a conflict that was not theirs. Macusa asked the British ministry whether British wizards planned to intervene. The reply was 4 words: sitting this one out. Officially, Macusa followed their example. Unofficially, individual witches and wizards still helped people they knew. Neutrality did not remove magical involvement. It simply pushed every rescue and every hidden spell outside government approval. The revolution established a pattern later Muggle wars would repeat. Magical governments preferred neutrality. Magical people were rarely that simple. Number 5. The spread of indoor plumbing. Indoor plumbing changed one of the most basic parts of wizarding life. Before witches and wizards copied the Muggle invention, they simply relieved themselves wherever they stood and vanished the evidence. As proper bathrooms, running water, and drainage spread, magical homes no longer needed a spell for something Muggles had solved with pipes. Hogwarts adopted more elaborate plumbing during the 18th century and nearly exposed the Chamber of Secrets. Corvinus Gaunt, a descendant of Salazar Slytherin, secretly moved its entrance behind a sink that could only be opened with Parseltongue. The pipes later allowed the basilisk to move unseen through the castle, so plumbing made everyday wizarding life far more civilized, and accidentally gave Slytherin's monster a hidden route through Hogwarts. Number 4. The Railway Revolution. Muggle railways solved one of the wizarding world's largest secrecy problems. Before the Hogwarts Express, students arrived by broom, enchanted carriage, magical creature, or almost anything their families considered practical. After the statute, hundreds of children traveling toward one hidden castle became legally catastrophic. The ministry tried port keys, but students missed their time slots, failed to recognize the enchanted object, arrived so sick that the hospital wing filled up at the start of term. Minister for Magic Adeline Gambol was fascinated by Muggle inventions and saw that trains could move every student along one controlled route. The ministry acquired a steam engine through an operation involving an enormous concealment charm and 167 memory charms. Railway workers and crew were left feeling that they had misplaced something important. Pureblood families protested that Muggle transport was dirty, unsafe, and beneath them. The ministry answered efficiently: take the train, or do not attend Hogwarts. When Muggles later built King's Cross, Minister Evangeline Orpington added a concealed platform between 9 and 10. A Muggle invention permanently changed how British magical children entered their world. Number 3. The First World War. The First World War proved that secrecy could not separate witches and wizards from Muggle history. Magical factions existed on both sides. American witches and wizards secretly joined the Great War, saving lives and fighting magical enemies, while most no-maj soldiers never knew they were there. Their contribution did not decide the war, but it prevented additional deaths. Newt Scamander worked with Ukrainian iron-bellied dragons on the Eastern Front. His older brother Theseus returned as a celebrated war hero, while Muggle soldiers faced artillery, trenches, and poison gas. Magical units were handling creatures capable of burning through any plane that looked sensible on paper. The war exposed the limits of separation. Wizards had hidden governments and laws against revealing magic, but they still had Muggle relatives, neighbors, and countries collapsing around them. Yet shared sacrifice did not create lasting openness. Rappaport's law remained in force in America. Witches and wizards fought beside no-maj and protected them, then returned home to a society where they could not legally befriend or marry them. The war briefly brought both worlds together. MACUSA rebuilt the wall. Number 2. American Prohibition. When the United States banned alcohol, MACUSA faced an unusual question. Should wizarding law copy no-maj law? President Serafina Picquery decided it should not. During the 1920s, magical bars continued serving drinks such as giggle water. Critics warned that visibly drunk witches and wizards leaving hidden establishments looked suspicious in cities full of supposedly sober no-maj. Picquery refused to change the policy. Being a wizard in America was already difficult enough, she argued, and the giggle water is non-negotiable. The decision revealed how separate MACUSA had become from the government surrounding it. American witches and wizards used no-maj cities and shared their economy, but did not automatically accept their laws. Prohibition also made establishments such as the Blind Pig resemble wizarding speakeasies, except their customers included goblins, magical criminals, and people who could escape through walls. Muggles banned alcohol and created underground drinking. Wizarding America already had the underground part covered. Number 1. The Second World War. American Prohibition showed that magical governments could ignore Muggle laws. The Second World War showed that they could not ignore Muggle history. At his Paris rally in 1927, Grindelwald showed his followers a vision of the destruction approaching the Muggle world, armies marching, cities burning, and a weapon capable of killing enormous numbers of people at once. The war had not yet begun. Grindelwald was already using it as propaganda. His argument was that Muggles had become too violent and technologically dangerous to govern themselves. Wizards had the power to prevent the coming destruction, but only if they stopped hiding and took control. That made every future bomb part of his recruitment speech. He did not need his followers to admire Muggles. He needed them to fear what Muggles might build next. When the war finally began in 1939, magical communities could remain hidden, but they could not remain untouched. Witches and wizards still lived inside the cities being bombed. Some had Muggle relatives, while others watched an entire continent collapse around the entrances to their concealed streets and buildings. Tom Riddle spent those years moving between Hogwarts and a London orphanage. He even asked Headmaster Dippet for permission to remain at school during the summer, but Dippet refused. While Hogwarts stayed protected from the conflict, Riddle repeatedly returned to the Muggle world during wartime. At the same time, Grindelwald's magical revolution continued across Europe. Dumbledore finally defeated him in 1945. The same year, the Second World War ended. The two conflicts were separate, but Grindelwald had tied them together years earlier. He looked at the destruction Muggles were capable of causing and used it to convince wizards that domination was protection.